Okay, welcome everyone to another exciting webinar in our series here at Abhyas. My name is Priyanka and I am an executive business developer and wellness specialist here in Abhyas, Mauritius. And today I have such a super exciting topic and such an amazing members here today to speak on this topic. So our topic is called The Future of Mental Health in the Workplace. So this session aims to deepen understanding of mental health and well-being in the workplace while fostering collective growth and cultivating an environment that is rooted in awareness and inclusiveness. And with us here today, we have our two lovely panel members, Rachel and Dr. Subash. So welcome both of you. It's very nice to have you here on this platform. And as I can see, our audience is starting to make their way in. So welcome as you do come in. It's really nice to see you here today. So I'm going to start with just talking a little bit about what we do with these webinars. So these webinars that we have here on this platform, they're designed to bring a community together, a community of like-minded individuals so that all together we can learn how to expand our awareness of topics that are set here by Abhyas. However, these webinars are not designed to provide solutions to participants per se. There will obviously be opportunities for sharing tips and tricks with our panel members. They're very experienced in their field, so they will, of course, share some amazing tips with everyone here. And so here at Abhyas, our vision is through the application of experiential knowledge. Abhyas envisions a paradigm shift in society's perspective, equipping it with the ability to face the challenge as it is. And Abhyas's mission is that Abhyas is committed to equip individuals with equal opportunities by providing professional training to impart the courses on mental well-being, creating a better future for themselves and for humanity at large. And as our founder Namdeo would say, all transformations have one thing in common: the turnaround of the perspective on what people have been through. So here we have today our Zoom chat that's going to be very well monitored. So our lovely audience, please don't hesitate to put in your questions, your comments. There will be time towards the end of our webinar today where you will have the opportunity to engage with our panel members. You can ask questions, you can share insights. So let's keep that free-flowing ideas coming through. So with that, let's move on to introducing our panel members. So our first panel member today is Rachel Camp. So Rachel is the co-founder and design lead at the Neurodiversity Support Network in Switzerland. And she is an experienced coach and mentor to those who encounter obstacles to equality and opportunity. As a UX and visual designer, she provides creative and accessible solutions to problems faced by individuals and organizations. And she is a tireless proponent of inclusion and a strength-based perspective on neurodiversity. In her spare time, Rachel is an aerialist and the 2025 Swiss Vice Champion in Artistic Aerial Hoop. Welcome, Rachel. It's really good having you on this platform.
Thank you so much. It's great to be here.
Amazing. And Rachel is also a very good friend of mine, so I'm extra happy to have her here today. It brings back very, very good memories of our time in Switzerland. Great. So with that, I'd like to introduce Dr. Subash. So Dr. Subash is a forensic psychiatrist, and he's also a senior medical director at the University Settlement and a medical director at the Intensive Crisis and Stabilization Center in New York. He's also a clinical associate professor at Pace University, where he addresses mental health disparities in immigrant populations and also those in crisis care. Dr. Subash has been trained in India and in the US. He's held key academic and clinical roles. He is a strong advocate for physician well-being, and he teaches meditation for resilience and has received multiple awards for his contributions to psychiatry. Welcome, Dr. Subash. It's good to have you back on this platform.
Thank you for having me, Bianca.
Lovely. So we're going to move into our next question. So this is actually a special question for our audience. So please, our dear audience, take just a couple of moments here, maybe just 20, 30 seconds, not too long, to just think about this question. What does a mentally healthy and inclusive workplace look like to you? So take a few moments just to reflect on that. I definitely have my own reflections. And now we're actually going to move on to our panel discussions. Of course, audience, continue to share your insights through the chat. But our first question that we have to ask our lovely panel members today is, what are the mental health challenges we are facing in the workplace? And how can we create more sustainable and thriving workplace environments? So perhaps we can start with Rachel first. Yes.
No problem. This is a very interesting question. So, my gosh, to talk about all of those challenges, I mean, there are so many. But one thing I see, particularly at the moment, is like a lot of overwhelm. I would say overwhelm and burnout and anxiety and instability. So we have a lot of change happening in the workplace. We have a large amount of layoffs happening that make people feel very scared and very nervous. And when you're feeling terrified, it can be very difficult to show up at work and give your best when you've got a sort of thing in the background of your job being under threat or you not being there the next day. How are you going to pay your bills, etc.? Anxiety around performance, demands around increased performance as a result of AI being introduced, and the idea that people's productivity should then be much higher rather than it relieving any burden, which is unfortunate. In terms of like from a lens of neurodiversity, because this is an area that I have a lot of knowledge in, a lot of the issues that I see with that is people's needs not being understood and people's needs not being met because they're not understood. And sometimes this lack of understanding being put down to that they're not a good person or they're annoying or, you know, we just need to get rid of them because they're not a good fit. This kind of rhetoric. And then that is such a loss because neurodivergent people bring incredible skills and strengths such as problem solving, connecting the dots, being able to make like very understandable like documentation, being able to look at the big picture, being creative. Honestly, there are so many more I could list, but these are things that we need to go through difficult times, innovation, new ideas. We need that. And by having this sort of barrier there, we're not able to utilize that. And it's such a shame. And Dr. Subash, what do you think? I know it's a big question as well.
Oh, thank you, Rachel. And I'm happy to hear what you said about neurodivergent population. And I'm glad that you are here as one of our panelists with such a vast experience. It makes a big difference because yes, very few people have experience with neurodivergent population. Now, from my perspective, what I see is the biggest mental health challenge in today's workplace is invisible exhaustion, which you alluded to clearly. What I call as performance wellness while quietly burning out. My productivity is high. I'm seeing 50 patients in a day, but no one cares about how I feel. I will just give you an example of another healthcare professional I was working with who showed up at every meeting with a smile, delivered very good results, never missed a deadline. But when I was checking with him on to one, uh, he said, I'm exhausted from pretending that I am okay. And that stuck with me, that part that it was not that she was alone in this, because many professionals today feel overwhelmed with constant demands, lack of boundaries, and a culture that rewards overwork more than well-being. We see patients, our time is 9 to 5, we keep seeing them until 6, 7, or writing our notes until 9. Where is the time for ourselves? Now, this culture and this demand, now the question is, how do we shift that? So it starts with moving beyond surface level wellness initiative, like offering yoga once a week. Here in Brooklyn, I'm in New York, and in one of the hospitals, they have a wellness room in which you can go, rest, relax, talk to yourself as an introspection you can do. And there are those sand arts, you can just play and relax yourself. So at least it's the beginning. I'm not saying it accounts for much, but it's the beginning where people understand the need for a wellness room, and they held sessions once a week for people to talk, or something like yoga or meditation. So we need to create cultures where psychological safety, boundaries, and open dialogues are prioritized. And as leaders, we must model that. It is not enough just to say, oh, go take care of yourself. Oh, you are a big boy, big girl. You can do it. No, it doesn't work like that. We must ask our fellow colleagues or people whom we work with, oh, how are you feeling today? Which we do ask. Whenever we meet someone, it's a trend. How are you today? You shake hand and then you say, oh, I'm good, I'm good. But nothing is good. You have just learned that culture. Instead, if someone told you someday, oh, no, I'm not good, you don't even know how to respond to that. That is the crisis. So we have to look into what we can do to actually bring that change. Some things could be flexible scheduling, real mental health days, regular check-ins that goes beyond productivity, and most importantly, creating a space for people to say, I am not okay, without fear of judgment. Sustainable, thriving environments come from culture of care, not just policy. When people feel seen, heard, and supported, the performance doesn't drop, it elevates. So mental well-being isn't separate from success. It is the foundation of it. Maybe we will learn and more with time. Back to you, Priyanka.
Thank you. Thank you both. Absolutely. Really, really both very good points said there about diversity from both of you. Diversity, inclusivity play a really major role, and those who are from neurodivergent populations should not be underestimated. They should be celebrated because they bring a much broader perspective than we know. And absolutely very well said there, Dr. Subash, that having days where we actually are prioritizing our mental well-being, not looking at it as if it's like a transaction or a tick and flick, but genuinely looking after our mental well-being. And as you mentioned, boundary setting plays a very major role. This topic I can see is going to bring out some element of conversations about burnout. I do want to say, and I say this with a lot of passion, next week, one of our webinars is about burnout. So for those of you who are finding today's discussions very interesting and intriguing, please do tune in next week as well. So let's move on to our next question. So in this question, how do emotions shape our experience at work? And how does stress impact workplace productivity? Over to you. Rachel, you can go first if you wish.
Okay, no problem. This leads into a thought I just had about what Dr. Subash was saying about how you are not feeling fine. And neurodivergent people have like a different experience of emotions from like what is considered typical. So sometimes we're the canaries in the coal mine, so to speak. So we can be seen as overly emotional, oversensitive, saying too much, complaining, when actually we just feel certain issues first, and kind of the way we're wired, we just have to say it. And instead of this being seen as a warning flag and you know, policies being put in place, changes being made, asking what we can do, reflecting on that, it's sort of seen as, don't be so sensitive, stop complaining, just deal with that yourself. Like everyone else can suck this up, why can't you? And again, this is another missed opportunity of sort of us being able to flag things early and being able to do something about them. On the other side, there's also a phenomenon called alexithymia. So this is basically where we do not know what we're feeling. And it is totally possible to be very emotional and also alexithymic at certain periods. So when you don't know what you're feeling, it's very difficult to navigate the world because you're getting a lot of sensations in your body, but you're not really able to make sense of those. And that can lead to all kinds of things in the workplace. That can lead actually to not recognizing when you're tired and you need to take a break, not knowing when you need to go and have lunch, not knowing that something that someone said to you, actually you felt angry about that, but you just go and you're sort of saying, oh, you know, oh, why is my neck tight? Why does my head hurt? Why do I feel like breathless? But you're not able to understand how you're feeling. So there's a huge, I guess, disparity between emotional experiences and the ability to express them, that also can affect the relationship between colleagues. Because if we have a resentment, let's say, or a frustration at something, and we don't bring that out and discuss that, that can really build up. And it can go from being something very small to being something absolutely huge in someone's mind. And there's no awareness of that process. So I do think like there are two sides of this, not only of hearing emotions, but also learning more about what emotions feel like for us, learning to recognize them ourselves, and maybe learning to intervene earlier than when you feel like you're absolutely going to blow up and you've had enough, let's say. And yeah, there are tools, by the way, to use this, and to use this to help with this. And I can talk about those later, but I'd love to hear from Dr. Subash and what his views are on this.
So thank you, Rachel, and I'm impressed with the way you use the word alexithymia. So alexithymia may be very commonly experienced in neurodivergent population, where they are unable to label their emotions. And how you use that word for neurotypical population. So it's a big leap, very meaningful, very direct, and associating that the people whom we call neurodivergent, and we say that they have difficulty with emotions, but basically as neurotypicals, as someone like you, me, Priya, we are neurotypical. So we have lost the ability to experience emotion in some form or the other, under the stress of day-to-day need, financial matters, productivity, and work. Because, see, emotions are not just background noise. They shape how we show up, how we make decisions, how we collaborate, and how we are creative or resilient at work. So once again, I like to learn from day-to-day examples and use them for better understanding. So a colleague at my hospital, a very sharp, dedicated, capable person, but when there was an intense crisis, she would start missing details. She would start withdrawing from the team. And when we spoke, she said, I'm constantly anxious and I can't turn it off. It's just like people in the war zone, the soldiers who are in the war zone, even when they return home, the way they have overcharged their brain to fight, they are still in that mode. And that is the reason why even in sleep, they tend to hurt their partners. Now, here we are not in a war zone, but it seems like today's work ethics and work culture, need for constant productivity, makes us feel like we are in a war zone. So she said, I'm constantly anxious and I cannot turn it off. Even when I go home. So even when she goes home, she checks how many signatures she is missing, what needs to be done. So I realized with her, it wasn't just a lack of skill, it was emotional overload and unmanaged stress, draining her focus, confidence, and engagement, which she herself was not fully aware of. If she was aware of the stress she was experiencing, she would have asked for help, support. But we have not normalized this feeling of exhaustion. If you are exhausted, leave the work or, or leave it altogether. You're not good enough. That is the way it is seen. We forget the reality. And here once again comes amygdala hijack. That stress hijacks our cognitive width. If we are very, very emotional, then the amygdala, the limbic system, and the emotions hijack us so much that our frontal part of the brain, the functioning part of the brain, where the cognition is, it is overshadowed by this overwhelming emotions. So when we are highly emotional and anxious, it narrows our attention and increases reactivity. You see, such colleagues will be, if you tell them something, oh, what happened? So they're always reactive as it's something is not right, and reduces our ability to connect. And when emotional well-being is low across the entire team at workplace, productivity just doesn't dip, it fractures. It just goes straight down. Communication breaks down, burnout rises, and innovation stalls. Now, what is the good news? We don't have to only talk about what is bad, but what is the good news? When organizations recognize emotions as data and not as disruption, they can create systems that support emotional intelligence. I'm not sure if you have heard of AMA, American Medical Association. I'm not advertising them, just to make it clear, but they have done extensive study on the burnout of physicians, because physicians have shown to either commit suicide or leave work and retire soon because of the way they are emotionally burnt out at the work and the demand for productivity and whatnot. So they literally use that data. And I think a year ago or so, it was in the range of 70% of physicians. But then there came the intervention. Most of the institutes and colleges now have a place to address your emotional turmoil. We also have EAP, Employee Assistance Program. But again, what prevents people from going there is the stigma. Even if you have a psychiatrist or a counselor or someone to talk to at the workplace, no one wants to visit because you don't want to be seen going to them. So that is another issue. So there are organizations which have used that data to improve the overall feeling of well-being. So, and we can have at workplace things like check-ins that go beyond task list. Not only you say productivity is you have seen 50 patients, But there is more to that. How do you feel today? Do you feel your back is hurting, your neck is hurting, something of that nature? So that will make a system, that will create a system that will support emotional intelligence. So peer support, trauma-informed leadership. I'm a part of peer support for Medical Society of New York. What is my role? And I know I'm taking more time, Priya, but once
No,
again,
it's
I
fine. Okay.
just
It's
share a
good. It's
story.
good. Please.
So a physician, 65-year-old, called me at 9 p.m. So as a peer support program, anyone can call me at any time of the day if they are in crisis as a physician. She called me at age 65. She told, I don't know who you are, but I have pills and a bottle of wine. And today is the last day. But before that, I thought, why not to talk to a peer? I thanked her for calling me. I told what happened. She said that me and my husband, who was 70, I'm 65, we are running a practice. My husband died a few years ago. The administrative work has become so overwhelming, and the cost of administrative work is beyond what I can earn. I have hired a staff to deal with the billing, the Medicare, Medicaid billing, and so many things that the earning is less and the expense has increased to the extent I cannot keep my office open, and there are so many people dependent on me. And every month I'm forced to take some or the other new exams, which has nothing to do with my clinical ability. I had enough of it. I have no kids, nothing. I have nothing to live for. And today I felt it is good day. I feel good today. I have a bottle of wine. Recently, I got prescription of clonazepam. So today is the end. We discussed that left. We went in detail, and I won't go much in detail of what it is. But that peer support on that day, we, I'm happy to say that we could save a life just because of the peer support and normalizing that you are not the only one. We are all going through this, and we have to fight this together. So peer support is also very important part of uh, how we can prevent and address burnout. And once we do that, people tend to become more resilient, collaborative, and productive. On that day, when I told her how I am suffering even at this younger age because of administrative work, I see 30 patients at the same time in the evening. I'm completing some or the other course for validation of my license, for which I already studied 14 years. So it is just not required. But so in short, what I'm trying to bring is that emotions aren't a liability. They are hidden engine behind performance. If we want thriving teams, we need to start leading with emotional literacy and not just efficiency. Back to you, Priya.
Thank you. Thank you, both of you, for your views and for your perspectives. Yes, this is a very interesting question, actually. And also, I just also want to mention that because we were talking about the topic of emotional intelligence, we had a very interesting panel yesterday, and together we were talking about what it means to, A, as a leader, have emotional intelligence, and B, how do you cultivate that in your teams as well? So it was very well expressed by both of you that emotions do have a very large impact on our experience at work. The thing is that emotions can also be quite effusive. They have the ability to completely dominate, to take over, to move us into a state where we are functioning in autopilot mode. And if our participation and our awareness is missing, then we will not achieve what it is that we are most aligned to achieve with our highest purpose. So here we talk about workplace productivity. So I'll give a scenario, and I'm happy for the audience as well to share their views in the chat. Would you rather have a leader who wears their emotions on their sleeve, or would you rather have a leader who is aware of what is going on within themselves and knows how to act, what to say, how to say it, and when to say it. So it's a rhetorical question, something to think about. So the thing is that as we have already have spoken on this question, and Rachel very rightly put that there is an opportunity for you to intervene before you blow up, before your emotions do get out of control. That is 100% there. We always feel like emotions are a liability, like you pointed out, Dr. Subash. But actually, it's not about the emotion per se, it's about what you do with it. It's how you respond to what it is that you feel. In the workplace, when we look at various different circumstances, or when we face stress, if you have two people in this environment, the environment is the same, but the way the two people respond to it is very different. So we know then that the issue is not the environment, it's how we're responding. And the good thing is that each and every human being has that ability, has that capability to become more aware of their emotions and what impact they're having on their productivity. And it begins with awareness. And so I want to mention that we had a lovely webinar yesterday talking exactly about this, where we go into more detail about what emotional intelligence is. And I think it's a perfect complement to what we're talking about today as well. But thank you both, Rachel and Dr. Subash, for sharing your insights on this question. So I think I'm seeing something coming through the chat.
Yeah, I'd also
Yes,
love to comment on this question as well, to give a
please.
little. So it was really interesting that we talked about environment here, because there's a little interplay within how we process emotions and how we process sensory stimuli, because this is a thing also that neurodivergent people can find quite difficult to deal with. So when you look at the science of this, and I'm welcome to be corrected if I don't explain this exactly, but you have something called neural pruning. And basically, when you take in information, your brain prunes some of it, it gets rid of it. So as you age, when you're younger, you take more of this information in, you keep more of it. As you age, you get rid of it. But if you're autistic, or you are another neurotype, you don't do this. So this is why you see autistic people having meltdowns in a shopping center, for example, because the shopping center, it's noisy. There's a lot of people, the lights are bright, there's loud music, and like the nervous system just cannot take it. It's too much, it overloads, and that results in a meltdown. So of course, I don't want to devalue anything that you've said about us being in control, and how, you know, we have control and how we should have awareness. Because, for example, when we know someone's autistic, and when we know that they're sensitive to light, they're sensitive to sound, there are things that can be done, both through accommodations and through, like, wearing sunglasses, using noise cancelling headphones, etc. And if they don't have that knowledge that their environment affects them, it makes it very difficult for them to navigate their life. So I want to add that as a caveat, that sometimes in specific circumstances, our environment can be triggering. But again, the key thing here is that awareness of what's happening and awareness of what they're dealing with is the key thing that we need. So I'm absolutely in alignment with that.
Yes, absolutely. No, beautifully, very well said there, Rachel. And I think, you know, I'm really glad that we are talking about this topic today, because I think all across the world, this is something as human beings we need to be able to do. We're all interconnected beings. We need to be able to support each other. We need to have that awareness about our own presence and the presence of others, and how we impact others, and how we can support and nurture others as well. So thank you for that. So we have one more question to go today. So we'll move to that question now. So this one is about what inner shifts or narratives can help us move towards a workplace culture rooted in awareness, inclusiveness, and collective growth. Happy for Dr. Subash to start this one. Yeah.
Sure. So see here again, I'll take example from what Rachel said that, but I will shift it into our so-called neurotypical population. That an autistic child in a mall due to excessive sound has a meltdown. But if someone has the awareness that this sound is too excessive for someone, they can have things in place to prevent that meltdown instead of letting it happen. Like, as you said, earbuds, sunglasses, if someone has issue with light. Now, similarly, to come to your question from that perspective, see, one of the transformative inner shifts that we all need to make moving forward in our mindset is, I need to prove my value. That is what we are all loaded with at our workplace. We forget that we grow when we lift each other. So now I will move from the example of autism to an immigrant doctor. And I'm sorry for just taking examples of doctors, because for years and years, these have what I have done and seen. So a highly skilled immigrant physician in US, we have a lot of immigrant physician. I'm an immigrant physician who, despite her qualification, constantly second guessed her voice in a meeting. She had an internalized narrative that she had to earn her seat at the table every single day. Now, what changed of her wasn't just a policy. It was when a senior leader said to her, your lived experience is a leadership strength. We need more of that and not less. It is same as for autism child when you know that it is too noisy and the person needs a headphone before even going to the mall. So the moment he, the leader, acknowledged that you are what you are and you are an asset to us, that single moment of acknowledgement shifted her inner narrative. And she began mentoring others like her instead of second guessing herself. So this is the essence of conscious culture. We are conscious of our needs, and even that will be wrong to say. We are not conscious of our needs. We are conscious of what social status needs us to do rather than what we need to do for our total holistic well-being. So we are not even conscious of our own needs. But in the conscious culture, when individuals are not just invited to the table, but valued for bringing their full, authentic self, not edited version, that is what is needed. It starts with leaders doing the inner work. I think Rachel or Priya, you were mentioning what to say, when to say, whom to say. So that is what is conscious culture. You cannot say same things to everyone. It is very much customized, individualized, and it makes a very big impact on the people you are working with. So the leader first have to have an inner engineering within themselves. They need to notice their own biases. They need to soften their ego, seeing success not as an individual performance, but as a shared elevation. For example, if I have a autism, uh, a high functioning Asperger's psychiatrist, so I need to see that person for their skill set, not because they're just carrying a diagnosis of Asperger. It doesn't make sense. Just like if there is a physician, we are not meeting that physician because he or she is an immigrant, but simply because he or she is a physician. So that conscious culture is very, very important to let our biases go away, soften our ego, and success not as individual performance, but a shared elevation. It's not only you fly, but what is important is how many others fly high with you. That is what counts. We need to build inclusive. We build inclusive environment where everyone is aware, and the culture is growth driven and not just through policies. What is needed here through daily micro moments of validation, listening, and curiosity. It makes a very big impact. When I'm in a treatment team meeting, there are people who are not very high in their administrative rank. So, for example, we call it a behavior health analyst, not analyst, behavior health support. These are the 6 feet body built people who would hold down a highly agitated person. So they are not psychiatrically trained, but they are there to help and protect us if someone is getting angry. Now, they will have something to say sometimes because they spend 24 hours with the patient. So how curious you are in that moment, instead of being dismissive, how conscious you are of their presence is what is needed to build a team that elevates every moment. So that is very important. And we need to, when we shift from a scarcity to shared abundance, from fear to trust, the culture follows. So the real shift in this is me versus the system. The moment we are not focused on individual productivity and goal, but we focus and on the system, then we realize that we are the system and we have the power to make it better together. One very important aspect which I would like to mention here is the importance of real purpose of life. That doctor on that day at age 65, when she wanted to kill herself, my question was, what have you not gained, or what have you lost that you have lost the purpose of life? She had no answer. So I reminded her to think through, what is the purpose of life? What is the purpose of being human? What is the bigger purpose? When people are able to think through, then they understand that life is way, way beyond just work, productivity, family, car, house, business. With those words, back to you, Rachel. I would like to hear what Rachel has to say.
Thank you. And I wondered, my question when I heard about your colleague and what she was missing, and I wondered if that thing was hope. Because when we don't have hope, it's very hard to go through our life when we don't have hope, even if it's a very small thing that we hope for. And it sounded like maybe the thing that she was missing at that point was hope. So I really enjoyed listening to how you connected to needs in the workplace, because this is a bit of a passion of mine. So I found a framework a few years ago called nonviolent communication. And actually, this is a bit of a story that I have, because I'm someone who's very, I'd say, outspoken sometimes if I'm frustrated. I'm very outspoken. However, with NVC, it's kind of like a framework of expressing your needs and also understanding the needs of others, and then using that to get your needs met. And one of the things that I realized that I was missing as someone who's very outspoken was showing that I understood their needs, because a lot of the time autistic people are labeled, I think unfairly, as people who don't have empathy, when in fact they can be very highly empathetic. However, just because I'm feeling it doesn't mean that you know that. Just because I'm connecting it and I'm feeling it in my body doesn't mean that you have any idea of that. So I found this framework. This is like a framework anyone can use. Just really awesome for being able to say, when someone says to me, I'm really frustrated, I'm really sad because of this, and I can say, okay, like I can see that frustration. I can see how hard this is for you. And suddenly that just opens up a world that you never would have had you gone about the conversation just saying things, I don't know, like I'm also frustrated, or trying to solve the problem. So I loved that you connected with the needs, because I feel like, yeah, not only when you recognize what you're feeling, but also that you're showing validation and understanding of what the other person is feeling. This can be really just a great way to go through life and kind of bring down barriers between people, for all kinds of things. So I'd love to see in the workplace NVC being taught and adopted a little bit more. I realize that it's not the perfect solution. Sometimes we make mistakes. So another thing I wanted to also say is, if we don't say the right thing at the right time to the right person, that it's okay for us to do that, with the knowledge that we know next time how that impacted, and how we can learn from that, and how we can go forward from that. So it's okay not to be perfect, but maybe we learn things not only about ourselves but about others, and we find that place in the middle, which I do believe exists, where we can make space for mistakes, and we make space for emotions, and we're able to focus really at what is at heart, is what we need, and how we can find a way to meet both the needs. Because normally, once you recognize someone else's need, they, because they've been heard, have a little bit more capacity to be able to do that. And sorry, finally, for the autistic community, I just have to note the word Asperger's, as I know it is still used. However, it was removed from the DSM-5, and a lot of us in the autistic community don't use it anymore because of its links to Nazi Germany. So again, this is me saying, it's not for me to criticize at all, but I just wanted to express perhaps some of the feelings that we have around this word being used, and how we sort of feel about it. But again, it's not for just shame or judgment, right? It's about learning.
I would like to say one thing here, and I'm sorry and
Oh no,
apologetic
you don't
about
apologize.
using the word, but I just wanted to bring up the autism spectrum disorder, where someone is very high functioning. And in the initial middle school days, we had the word Asperger. And while having established well-known person in neurodivergent population like you, but there are people who would not understand a very high functioning ASD, autism spectrum. So I use the word Asperger, but with no
Okay.
bad intent or nothing.
Do you use support labels? Because I know that was another change that was made in the DSM-5, was to change sort of, to use these support levels of high, of low support needs. I know this is also debated, but level 1, level 2, and level 3. So from sort of needing support but not significant, all the way to needing like a high level of support. Is that a term you've come across? Because again, like, some people use high functioning and that works for them, but some prefer to use these kind of support levels, or something completely different. It's a little bit individual, but yeah, I know as far as the DSM-5, we have the support levels.
Yes, but since my population I work with is not at all neurodivergent. So I work with criminals, I work with the forensic team, and I work with neurotic and few psychotic patients, but not mainly neurodivergent. So I have not come across, I have not used it extensively to label someone based on the support they need.
I understand. Have you come across much research around neurodiversity in the prison population, because this is something that I'd love to share with you. There's actually studies in the UK that have been brought about by police officers or people working in the criminal justice system about the prevalence of undiagnosed neurotypes and neurodivergent conditions within the neurodivergent population. And I would really love to share these with you after our call if you'd be interested.
Oh, sure.
I do.
And
Yes, I think it
thank you
would be
for
great. Yeah,
offering that, and
please
it will
do
be
get in
great to
touch.
have that.
Yeah,
Yes.
it's quite new
Great.
research and new findings, but it's a very interesting area. And I definitely was also surprised when I saw and I read. But when you look at what they're writing, there's definitely some interesting things in it. I mean, for example, dyslexia. There's a high prevalence of dyslexia in the prison population, and that's also an interesting topic. Again, I don't want to take over the webinar, but I'd be very happy to share this research with you.
Nutshell, Rikers Island is the prison, one of the biggest prison across the globe. And initially in research, they found 95% of them have mental illness. Then they found 75% have mental illness. So they concluded that with deinstitutionalization, when the institutions were closed, these patients literally ended up in the prison because they did not know how to react, how to respond appropriately, optimally based on our social norms. So some were just arrested for some behavioral issues. So in Rikers, and they had multiple different studies on that, of what percentage has mental illness. So, but
This is amazing. Yes, yes.
I would love to hear more and know more.
Yeah.
Thank you so much for being so open, because I don't want to look like I'm telling you what to do with your profession or anything like that. It's just always when I have new things, I like to share and just see how people feel about it, right?
This is really great. I think it will be really good to take this discussion offline, the three of us. I think there's real potential for an interesting avenue to explore, as this also does form a very significant part of mental health and well-being. So I think we have a question here coming from the audience, and as we do have just a few minutes left, I'd really like to share this question with our lovely panel members and request, your views on this. So the question is, what is the higher purpose of life? Oh, and I think Dr. Subash has provided, shall I say this out loud, Dr. Subash? Or would you like to elaborate?
Yeah, I would.
Yes,
so,
okay.
In my opinion, and I'm confining it to, in my opinion, based on my experience, the purpose is to realize what we are beyond our title, beyond our accomplishments and our roles. What we are from our deeper inner self. How do we connect with that? So first, you need to know that we have a deeper self. You need to be conscious of your deeper inner self. Once you are conscious of that, then you need a technique to reconnect with your deeper self. On superficial level, the beginning of that connection is when you feel love and compassion for others, when you recognize needs of others more than yourself. So that is where it begins. So knowing your deeper inner self and its existence in the grand schema of this universe, where you are in this grand schema of the universe, what makes you still feel incomplete. If you talk to even the most successful people who are billionaires, still you will see that restlessness within them. So what is missing is the knowledge of the significance of you as a molecule, not just as a human, under this broad universe. So when you learn your role in that broad universe and the purpose of being in unison with that universe, we all have our different ways. So I'm not going to go in that direction. But when we delve deep into being in unison, in harmony, in sync with the bigger universe, you start feeling the real purpose of your life. Back to you, Rachel, and Priya, whatever, Priya, you can add.
I love this. I love this. I love, of knowing who we are, of knowing what's important to us, and really knowing what's important to us. And as you say, our connection with others, because we are tribal beings and we exist in an interconnected universe and we interact with everything, and having that knowledge and that understanding of what we bring to the world and what that does for others around us and how that elevates and uplifts the world that we live in. Thank you so much for sharing that.
Beautifully said. Thank you so much, both of you. That's been a really, really amazing, diverse, different, perspective widening webinar today. We've talked about some extremely important concepts here. We've talked about the importance of support and the importance of having compassion, understanding, curiosity, respect, and a genuine love for all of the people that we work with. Being able to be in a position where we can respect our differences, being in a position where we can recognize our strengths, and work together in an inclusive manner towards a common goal in the workplace. We also talked about the element of emotions and the roles that emotions play in the workplace and on productivity. So here we talked about having this awareness and also having an understanding of the environment that we are in and how it's impacting us, understanding what triggers us and understanding how we can move ahead in that position. So with that, I just want to again say a big thank you, a very warm, heart-open thank you to Rachel and Dr. Subash today. It's been so amazing. I've learned a lot as well, so I'm really grateful to our lovely audience and the questions that you have shared, the comments you've made. Thank you. So just to close, just mentioning our Institute of Universal Awareness, Abhyas. We are located here in beautiful tropical Mauritius. And of course, if you are based in Mauritius, please do come along and see our center. We serve a research hub for mental health and well-being as well. So there's a very large focus in our organization on physiological, psychological, emotional, and social factors that do contribute to an individual's overall mental health. If you've liked our webinar today, please do follow us on YouTube. We have our channel there. You can also have a look at our LinkedIn page. We've shared the QR code at the bottom right of the screen. And of course, our website, which is www.abhyas.mu. And finally, I want to mention that if you're interested in exploring Mauritius alongside Abhyas and you'd like to know more about how you can enrich your own mental health and well-being, please do join us for our retreats. We have retreats continuing throughout this year. Our next retreat is happening in July, and I would be ever so honored to have you attend as well. So with that, I just want to announce our next webinar is next week on the 2nd of July, and the topic is the burnout epidemic in the corporate world. So please do come along. I'm really looking forward to this topic as well. And with that, I just want to say thank you one more time and just sharing a final quote from our founder. The highest peak of one's performance can only be achieved through synchronization of body and of mind. So thank you everybody for joining me today, and I look forward to seeing you again next time on this platform. Bye for now.